You know, it was Eisenhower that said, beware of the government industrial complex. And it was a radio talk show host, Michael Savage, that says, beware of the government media complex. Well, I got a little bit different take on that, folks. In my opinion, these days, it should be beware the government CEO complex. Because as you guys know, it's all about the billionaires and the millionaires that own the politicians. Now, you've noticed how bad things have been getting in this country. You see what's going on. You see non-stop surveillance, non-stop tracking, non-stop spying, non-stop databasing. You've seen recently reports that new streetlights are going to have cameras in them, and they're going to have microphones in them in order to spy and listen in on people's conversations. It's everywhere. Now, who is it that's doing this? This is your CEOs, okay? And this is how they get around the U.S. Constitution. This is how they get around search warrants. This is how they get around the courts, because it's all private property, and they're the CEOs, and they own them. And what they've done, pretty much, is over time, we've gone from the Fortune 500 to the Fortune 5, pretty much, to where they either buy each other out, or in some way, shape, or form, they have influence over all other companies. Now, because the CEOs, the billionaires and millionaires, have purchased all politicians, both Republican, Democrat, whoever you may be, they own them. And these politicians will not pass laws to put a stop to this. Now, one of the other things these CEOs have done is a thing called denial of services. If you don't go along with their game, they will deny you services. Okay? And this is the game they've been playing. Now, what should have happened was the American people, or any other free people, so to speak, around the world, should have done was rise up against that. Now, of course, I mean non-violently, peaceably, but they should have risen up against this and said, no, we're not going to take this. No, 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 no. Not going to happen. But they didn't. They capitulated. And if you guys know the old Winston Churchill saying, you know, it's the pacifist who keeps feeding the crocodile, hoping he'll eat him last. And that's what's been going on. And it's getting worse. Now, the question is, why are they doing these things? Why would a social networking site like Facebook be instituting the likes of facial recognition technology? Okay? Does that even sound right to you guys? I mean, isn't this something that George Orwell's Ministry of Love would be instituting? You know, I actually saw a program a few weeks ago about facial recognition technology. And one of the other places they have it now is the casinos in Las Vegas. So basically what it is that this is going to be everywhere, just like George Orwell's 1984. It's going to be everywhere, all over the planet, so that they can track you down and take you out. And the question is, why are the people not stopping this? Well, in my opinion, it's the Stockholm Syndrome. Now, in case you don't know what the Stockholm Syndrome is, what the Stockholm Syndrome is in 1973 in Stockholm, Sweden, there was a bank robbery. And what happened was the bank robbers held hostage everybody in the bank. Well, when the day finally came that the police went in to liberate the hostages and arrest the bank robbers, it turned out that the victims started to stand up and defend the bank robbers. So much so that I believe after the robbery was over with and they were heading towards court to prosecute them, the victims started to have a a legal defense fund for the bank robbers. I think I even heard that maybe even one of the female hostages just wanted to date one of the bank robbers, so forth and so on. And this is why when police SWAT teams go into situations like this, they handcuff everybody, regardless of protest by the victims. Hey man, I'm not one of the bank robbers, you know, you got the wrong guy. It doesn't matter. They do it anyway because of the Stockholm Syndrome, because in the past experience, people will turn on them. Okay? So here we have this Orwellian situation that's been growing and growing and growing throughout the country. We know that sooner or later this economy is going to collapse and there's going to be chaos. Now, in my opinion, this is why they're setting this up. They're setting up all these cameras everywhere. There is this relentless databasing, relentless profiling. They want to know everything about you, everything you eat, you drink, you buy, you whatever, you look at, on and on and on, because they can use that as a weapon against you. And in the end, there's going to be an iron-fisted dictator that's going to come along and use it. History always proves that. And this is what we have going on in the country, is the Stockholm Syndrome. Because no matter how bad it gets, nobody seems to be stopping this. It just seems to keep going and going and going and going. Now, here's another thing. It's like, I've been seeing this. This is an election year, of course, and I keep hearing and seeing this over and over and over again like a broken record. When it comes to the election, the only choice we have is Ron Paul. Right? Okay. Well, I don't know about that, because if you look at Ron Paul, what did Ron Paul do to stop this? Now, you remember when the Emmanuel Obama administration cabal took over this country, that shortly afterwards they came out with an enemies of the state list, and they named veterans, they named Christians, and they named Ron Paul supporters, among many others. Go look at the list again, you'll see what I mean. Now, when I saw that, I was a little bit taken back. And I thought, well, Ron Paul is a legislator, okay? He's got political pull. He's right there in Washington, D.C. And if they're calling Ron Paul supporters terrorists and all this other stuff, well then what are they calling Ron Paul himself? So I waited to see what the reaction would be. And you know what the reaction was, right? Nothing. Ron Paul did nothing. From then until now, he has done nothing. His supporters have done nothing to put a stop to this. And what happens when you sit back and you do nothing? The power of your opponent grows and grows and grows, and they get more and more powerful, and they stock up more and more stuff against you. Now, what should have happened was there should have been a march on Washington, peaceably and legally, of course, with torches and pitchforks, and there should have been an absolute demand for investigations into this administration, disclosure, so forth and so on, to put a stop to this. Well, that didn't happen. So now, as of lately, you probably heard about how the Obama administration Justice Department had put out a memo telling the employees that when people inquire about their records, their secret records, that the U.S. Justice Department is to go ahead and lie. To just go ahead and tell them, well, these records don't exist, when in fact they do. You probably also remember when Obama was in office not that long, that he signed that executive order establishing the secret police files. You know, well, they call them Interpol files. But when you look at the executive order, it is the gathering of secret information that is hidden in a file that nobody can access, not even the United States Supreme Court. And Freedom of Information Act, so forth and so on. Now I ask you, who gave him the authority to do that? But again, ladies and gentlemen, what was the reaction? Well, the reaction was nothing. Just complete and utter capitulation. Nobody did anything. They just went on about their business as though nothing happened. Okay? And this is what is going on in this country right now, is the Stockholm Syndrome. And it always ends in a bad way, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Now, let me give you another example. Okay? Now, let me show you something. The end of World War II, okay? The